Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome back to my podcast for those of you who are listening to this episode in the audio version only. My name is Rex, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the new moon in Aries, taking place on the 1st of April. Before we start analyzing this new moon, let me mention a few quick things to you. All episodes on my podcast, all videos on my channel follow Western tropical astrology, in case you are still wondering. In my practice, I use the whole sign house system. So I don't use Placidus. If you're looking at your natal chart in Placidus, then you may find that some of the events that I talk about, planetary events, of course, happen in a different house. I use the whole sign house system because I have found it to be the most accurate in my experience and in my clients' experience, and also because it is the oldest out there. It was used almost exclusively for the first probably, I think, 1,000 years of what we call today tropical astrology. If you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. I'm currently taking bookings for the month of May for the 1-hour live Zoom consultation. In this type of consultation, we look at your natal chart. We can analyze it in depth. We can also look at the year ahead, major themes that you can expect to deal with. This is also a session that is suitable for those who are looking for a compatibility reading or who want to learn more about their astrocartography. Also, I have recently launched the mentorship service on my website. This is again available to purchase there as well. This is a service that is suitable for astrology students. If you want to perfect your natal chart interpretation techniques, if you have questions about astrology that you don't know exactly who to direct them towards, if you want to learn practical tips, recommendations from a practicing astrologer such as myself, this is the service for you. Last but not least, on the 5th of March, I ran a Saturn Transits Masterclass. This is now also available to purchase as a recorded course on my website. So you will get access to the video recording of the class and also to the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that we went through together. What did we cover in this course? Well, what you can expect from Saturn transits, why they're important, the Saturn return, the Saturn 7-year cycle, also the impact of Saturn transiting through the 12 houses in your natal chart, aspecting your natal planetary placements. There is a lot covered there, plus also a lot of questions that I got from students. So you can find the recording to purchase on my website in the services section as well. New moon in Aries, 1st of April. Folks, this new moon is happening at 11 degrees, 13 minutes of Aries at 6:24 GMT time, 6:24 in the morning. This new moon is going to be conjunct Mercury in Aries and also Chiron in Aries as well. Now, what can we expect from this new moon as the sun and the moon get really, really close to Chiron, the wounded healer in the sky? Well, certainly new moons bring in new beginnings in general. It's the beginning of a new cycle. It's the cosmic inhale, as some astrologers call it. Chiron is generally connected with unhealed wounds. It is also the archetype of the maverick, of the one that stands out, of the one that has to carve their own unique path, because conventional paths are not necessarily accessible to him. Whatever new beginning you're experiencing at this time, it may feel like you need to do things differently. It may feel like you need to find an alternative route, an alternative path, because what everyone else is doing, or what used to work for everyone else in the past may not necessarily work for you. Now, at a collective level, of course, we have to think about the energy of Aries. Aries is the sign of new beginnings. It is the sign of the warrior. It is the sign of the survivor. It is the sign of the entrepreneur. This can bring a global, a collective new beginning for entrepreneurs. It can also bring a collective new beginning that has very, very strong military flavors to it. Aries is a sign that is associated with the military. It is associated with jobs that are done in uniform, so the police, the military, firefighters, and so on. I don't want to say it, but it can be a new beginning that also involves the armies of countries somehow. The thing is, I feel like some people at this time are probably going to feel like the only way to fight back, to defend themselves, the only way to survive is to hurt more, even though they're also hurting themselves in the process. So it's a bit of a tricky new moon. It feels like no one really wins. So there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of defending, there's a lot of trying to protect ourselves, but also we realize that in this entire kind of like process of defending ourselves, everyone loses to a certain degree. I will also say, this new moon can bring some sort of new beginnings connected with hospitals, the medical system, and so on. It's definitely not my favorite new moon of 2022. There are other new moons that look a lot better than this one. But alas, what can we do? It is what it is. We have to deal with it, carry on, and sometimes also realize that the rules will not necessarily keep us safe. And tradition will also not necessarily keep us safe either. So let's see how this new moon is likely to unfold for the 12 zodiac signs. By the way, I strongly recommend listening to the update for your rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, then you can find out your time of birth from your parents, from your birth certificate, and generate your natal chart online. Google online natal chart generator, and that will tell you your ascendant, the sign of the ascendant, or the rising sign. The ascendant is the exact degree of the rising sign. My dear Aries, Aries sun and Aries rising. This new moon is happening in your first house of identity, of the physical body. It is conjunct Chiron. It is conjunct Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of your third house of news and communication, and of your sixth house of day-to-day work. Mars, which is the ruler of this new moon, is applying to a conjunction with Saturn in Aquarius in your 11th house. This conjunction will be exact on the 5th of April. So from the 1st of April, and I would also look at the few days beforehand, until roughly the 5th, my dear Aries, you may realize that you need to take care of your body in a new way. You may realize that you need to bring some sort of new habit into your life if you want to feel better physically. You may also realize that you need to learn to live with some sort of inner wound. By putting in the time and the effort over an extended period of time, you can heal this. But for now, you just have to live with it. And it is painful. It can be a wound of a physical nature. It can be a wound of a mental health related nature. But it's there. So you might as well acknowledge it. And you might as well also have a think about how you can push yourself forward, even if you don't necessarily feel like doing it right now. I would also strongly recommend being very careful if you're working out, if you're using sharp tools around this time. I would be very careful when utilizing them, because there can be a tendency to maybe hurt yourself. You could be a little bit predisposed or inclined to experience cuts, bruises, things like that, especially around the arms and the head. So careful there. My dear Taurus, Taurus suns and Taurus risings. This new moon in Aries on the 1st of April is happening in your 12th house. It is conjunct Mercury and Chiron. And for you, my dear Taurus, Mercury rules your 2nd house and your 5th house. Okay, so this is a new beginning, Taurus. I would say where you are surrendering, maybe, where you're letting go of an old value, of something that used to be very important for you, of maybe something that you used to put a lot of time, energy, and effort into. You could be letting go of something that you used to spend your money on. You might decide, okay, maybe this was nice and pleasant and enjoyable, but actually it's doing a lot of damage for me on a mental health level. It's making me feel worse in the long run. You may also decide to tackle in a new way, in a novel way, in an alternative way, specific to Chiron. You may decide to tackle your mental health in a different way. You might try out something new. You might also face a fear around this time. It can be very impactful, I'd say, but it might also clarify what one of your biggest blind spots is, Taurus, especially Taurus risings. Now, if you are a Gemini sun or a Gemini rising, this new moon is happening in your 11th house. It is conjunct Mercury, which is your ruler. Mercury also rules your 4th house. It is also conjunct Chiron. So I see a new beginning for you Geminis in terms of plans for the future. You might set a new goal for yourself. It could be a goal connected with your private life, your residence sector, your family life. You may need to do things differently in order to achieve this goal in the long run. You may need to think out of the box. You may need to take a different path. You may need to take an unorthodox approach, because the traditional orthodox approach to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve doesn't necessarily seem to work for whatever reason. This could also be a time when you hear some sort of painful news connected with a friend. Maybe a friend is going through a very kind of like tough time in their life. If you can be there for them, if you can offer some emotional support, that would probably be fantastic. Now, if you are a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising, my fellow Cancerians, on the 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after, I would actually give it until the 5th of April. You've got a new moon in your 10th house of career and public status and public reputation, conjunct Mercury and Chiron. Mercury is the ruler of your 12th house and of your 3rd house. The sun is the ruler of your 2nd house of income. You could announce publicly at this time, Cancerians, that you're going to take an unconventional path career-wise, that maybe you're going to launch something, or you're going to throw yourself into a kind of like professional endeavor that takes everyone by surprise. That makes people kind of like raise their eyebrows and say, "Oh, I did not see that coming from you." This could also be a time when you realize that something has hurt your reputation, and you need to start building it once again. Something has hurt maybe your status, something has hurt your social standing, and you need to go about rebuilding it or kind of like constructing a new one in a different way, in an unorthodox way, Cancerians. Now, if you are a Leo sun or a Leo rising, this new moon in Aries in the 9th house is conjunct Mercury and Chiron. I would look at the 3 days before and maybe the 5 days after this new moon. Why the 5 days? Because on the 5th of April, Mars, which is the ruler of the new moon, is exactly conjunct Saturn in Aquarius in your 7th house of relationships. So, Leos, at this point in time, you may initiate some sort of legal process, some sort of like legal proceedings, some judicial process. This could also be a time, Leos, when you start collaborating with someone from abroad in order to make money, in order to generate income, and so on. You might not necessarily be very thrilled that you're working with this team or with this person, but on the other hand, it does seem to be something that is kind of like broadening your horizons. It is exposing you to a new culture. It could be good for your career and for your finances in the long run. You may also feel like you're kind of like reaching an agreement that isn't necessarily the type of agreement you would say yes to, especially in a business environment, my dear Leos. Saying that, this could also be a time when you decide to maybe study something of a spiritual nature, of a philosophical nature, that helps you understand maybe the parts of yourself that you are a little bit scared to look at. Maybe that helps you understand an old wound. Now, if you are a Virgo sun or a Virgo rising, on the 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after, I would actually give it until the 5th of April. The new moon in Aries in your 8th house is very active. You're experiencing a new beginning when it comes to shared resources, other people's money, money or assets that you have in common with a partner. This can be a time when you start paying a debt or when you somehow enter into debt. That's also very, very possible. This could also be a time when you start working more on your mental health, and you could take an unconventional approach to your mental health. You might be willing to try out something new, maybe the traditional routes in terms of getting over some sort of crisis or period of transition. They didn't work, so you're like, okay, I'll try anything. I'm just gonna try throw everything that I've got at it and see what sticks. This can also be a time when you maybe receive a bonus from work, but it's probably less than you thought it would be. So it ain't looking that great, but it's still something. Now, if you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, on the 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after, actually I would give it until the 5th of April. You've got a new moon in your 7th house of relationships. It is conjunct Mercury and Chiron. Libras. Something's happening in the life of your partner, if you have a partner. They may enter some sort of painful process of transformation or of letting go of something in their life. They are probably suffering. There doesn't seem to be a lot that you can do other than kind of like be there for them, maybe give them moral support. Your partner could experience a sense of loss if you have a partner. If you don't have a partner, then it may feel like the people that you're attracting in your life at the time are going through a very, very tough time. They're going through a challenging time. They feel misunderstood. They feel like people don't really see them for who they are. So maybe it is a kind of like a case of you being even more empathetic than you normally are and kind of like giving them the benefit of a doubt because they are dealing maybe with this outsider kind of syndrome, with the syndrome of feeling like an alien somehow, Libras. Now, if you are a Scorpio sun or a Scorpio rising, this new moon on the 1st of April is happening in your 6th house of day-to-day work and of health. And it is conjunct Chiron and Mercury. Okay, so you could start some sort of new health treatment, maybe an alternative treatment, not necessarily a medical treatment that is traditional, that is kind of like tried and tested. Maybe you're kicking off some sort of like experiment on a personal level for you health-wise, Scorpios. This could also be a time when you start working with a new team or a new team member. You don't seem to feel very comfortable in the company of this team or of this team member. You don't seem to feel very excited about working with them, but alas, things are unfolding in that direction. This can also be a time when you need to do something very brave and very courageous, even though people might look at you as if you are some sort of alien. You need to do something brave and courageous work-wise. Stand up for yourself, maybe. Speak for the underdog. Reassert your boundaries, my dear Scorpios, in a work environment. If you are a Sagittarius sun or a Sagittarius rising, the new moon on the 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after, I would actually give it until the 5th of April because that's when Mars, the ruler of the new moon, is conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. This new moon, Sagittarians, is likely to bring into your life some sort of new beginning when it comes to your passions, your hobbies, when it comes to maybe a creative project. Also, when it comes to children, possibly, and romantic love. You may start dedicating yourself more to maybe an unusual hobby, an unconventional passion. You may also start possibly learning more about healing and about helping those who you strongly resonate with. Mercury is the ruler of your 10th house. This could be a time, my dear Sagittarius, when you start utilizing your sense of creative self-expression more in a professional setup, or when you start learning something that seems different, unconventional, outrageous. You may start learning something that in the long run you decide to bring into your career path. This is also a time when you realize maybe that in order for you to enjoy romance, you are called to think differently. You are called to experiment. You are called to be brave enough to go maybe in a direction that other people would not go into. This is also a time to fight for what you love, for who you love, and for what is important to you, for what makes your heart burst with joy. Even if what matters to you and what you love isn't necessarily understood by all. It could also be a time when you experience some sort of new beginning romantically, but if you do, then there could be some sort of challenge that you need to overcome by being a little bit more creative. Now, if you are a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after, until the 5th of April, actually, I would give it until the 5th. This new moon on the 1st of April, Capricorns, is happening in your 4th house of home. It is conjunct Mercury and Chiron. Mercury rules your 6th house. The sun rules your 8th house. I do believe that maybe a family member is possibly going through kind of like a new beginning, but they're not necessarily feeling great about it. They could experience a sense of loss, a sense of being on their own. You could also experience some sort of pain coming from the family's side because you're empathizing with this person. This could also be a time when you stand up in front of a family member and say, listen, you can't cross this boundary. This could also be a time when you feel called to defend a family member, so it can go in either direction. It feels like you're starting somehow fresh home and family-wise. You're entering a new chapter, but it isn't necessarily a chapter that you're thrilled about. There is a sense of loss, there is a sense of woundedness, there is a sense of maybe having to fight to get what you want and you don't feel great about it. But what can I say? It does feel like you need to do it regardless, Capricorns. Now, if you are an Aquarius sun or an Aquarius rising, the new moon on the 1st of April is happening in your 3rd house of communication, of siblings, of short distance travel. I would look at the few days before, the few days after, actually until the 5th of April, because on the 5th, the ruler of this new moon is conjunct Saturn and Aquarius in your 1st house. You may start learning something new. You may join a course, a class, a classroom type of situation. You may also enter a new community around this time, Aquarius. But it is a community maybe that you feel like you belong to, because in it there are people who are suffering for the same reasons that you are suffering in some shape or form. So I do see some sort of like solidarity coming from suffering. This could be a time when you stand up for a sibling, when you defend a sibling. I'd say you might defend them in front of a legal maybe institution, or in front of a coworker. This could also be a time when you kind of motivate a sibling to stand up for themselves in a work environment. It could be a time when you buy a new car because your old car is kind of like breaking down, is falling apart. It could also be a time when you move to a new neighborhood, or when you realize that the daily community kind of like interactions that used to be a part of your life will no longer look the same. It feels like you're taking a brave step forward in maybe also speaking your truth at this time, even if that truth, Aquarius, hurts to say. It's like, it's painful to think about it, it's painful to say it, but it's more painful to say nothing. So use your voice at this time. And if you're a Pisces sun or a Pisces rising, this new moon is happening in your second house of income on the 1st of April, a few days before, a few days after. I would actually give it until the 5th of April to kind of like see how it unfolds. On the 5th, the ruler of the new moon is conjunct Saturn, exactly. I see you entering a new chapter financially, Pisces, but maybe a chapter where you realize you need to spend less, or you need to reevaluate your budget because you no longer have as much money as you used to have, or maybe you are no longer willing to spend some of your resources on what you were willing to spend in the past. You seem to have been burnt somehow financially. Symbolically speaking, you seem to have experienced some sort of slap in the face, and now you're like, hold on a second, I'm standing up for myself, or I'm taking action. Action is the keyword at this new moon. Do take action to protect your finances. Do take action to ensure that you're in a good position long-term financially, and do cut out of your life unnecessary expenses. Let's see. You might also voice some sort of maybe controversial opinion, controversial in the eyes of others. You might voice some sort of controversial opinion connected with your resources, connected with finances in general, in front of a family member or in front of your family. You could say, no, enough is enough. These resources, this money, I'm going to put it aside for what matters to me. I'm going to put it aside for what is important to me. I will not spend it as you would like me to spend it. So it feels like you need to defend and protect your resources around this time, Pisces. Folks, I hope this has been helpful. It's been a pleasure once again to do this update for you. Let us know in the comments how this new moon unfolds for you. April is a very interesting month because we are entering eclipse season, alas, and eclipses generally mark the most memorable times of the year. Remember, if you want to work with me, if you want to book a live consultation, if you want to work with me as a mentor, if you're an astrology student, or if you want to purchase the recorded Saturn Transits Masterclass, you can find all of these services on my website, written in the stars-astrology.com. You're also going to find the website in the description box and in the comment section. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @RuxUnbelievable. That is RUX, unbelievable in one word. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe. Thank you once again, and I will see you next time. Bye.